I met someone who sets my soul on fire. This thing between us, it's been dead for years. I'm done." Those were the words my girlfriend of 7 years said to me. Not in a quiet moment at home, not over a phone call, not even in a letter. She said them while we were sitting at a candlelit table on a cliffside terrace in Sedona, Arizona, with the red rocks glowing amber in the dying light of the sun, and a custom engagement ring burning a hole in the breast pocket of my blazer. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the beginning, because you need to understand the full picture to appreciate just how badly she miscalculated what would happen next. My name is Daniel. I'm 34 years old and a structural engineer based out of Denver, Colorado. 7 months ago, I thought my life was exactly where it was supposed to be. I had a career I was proud of, a condo I owned outright, and a woman I was certain I'd spend the rest of my life with. Her name was Brittany. She was 31, worked as a regional sales director for a pharmaceutical company, and we'd been together for 7 years. 7 years of farmers market Saturdays, knowing each other's coffee orders by heart, finishing each other's sentences at dinner parties, and building what I genuinely believed was an unbreakable bond. Hey, before we go any further, if you're new here, make sure you subscribe to Reddit Family Secrets and hit that like button. Stories like this one are why we're here. Now let's get back to it. We weren't perfect. No couple is. We argued about whose turn it was to call the plumber, about whether her mother visited too often, about my tendency to zone out during her work stories. But we were solid. We were a team. Also, I believed with every single cell in my body. I had been planning the Sedona trip for 9 months. I'm the kind of person who treats a proposal like an engineering project. Blueprints, contingencies, timelines. I'd researched every detail. The resort with the private outdoor hot tub overlooking Cathedral Rock. The restaurant perched on the cliffside where the sunset hit the mesa in a way that didn't look real. I even called the restaurant manager 3 weeks in advance to reserve a specific corner table. The ring was a custom piece I'd had made by a jeweler in Boulder. Brittany always said she found traditional diamond solitaires predictable and uninspired. So I had a Montana sapphire, deep blue with a violet undertone, set in rose gold, surrounded by tiny champagne diamonds that made the whole thing look like a piece of the evening sky. It had taken 4 months to make and cost me more than I'll admit here. Every time I opened the velvet box to look at it, I felt like the luckiest man alive. The first 2 days in Sedona were everything I had scripted them to be. We hiked the Cathedral Rock Trail at sunrise, our breathtaking small clouds in the cool desert air. We did a wine tasting at a vineyard in the Vede Valley where the host called us couple goals, and we laughed about it all the way back to the resort. We ate green chili cheeseburgers at a roadside place that had no business being as good as it was, and Brittany said it was the best thing she'd ever eaten and tried to steal mine before she even finished her own. She seemed genuinely happy. The deep, radiant kind of happy that isn't performed. I took a photo of her on the trail that first morning, her hair loose in the wind, red rock formations rising behind her like cathedral spires, laughing at something I'd just said. I looked at it on my phone that night and thought, this is the one. This is the woman. On the third day, something changed. It was subtle at first, the kind of thing you notice in your gut before your brain catches up. Brittany had signed up for a sunrise meditation and breathwork retreat at a wellness center about 20 minutes from the resort. It was a 3-day program, mornings only. I thought nothing of it. She'd been getting into that kind of thing lately, and I supported it completely. I spent those mornings on my own, hiking, reading on the resort patio, drinking too much expensive coffee. I was happy. I was at peace. I was 3 days away from proposing to the woman I loved. But when she came back each morning, she was different. Not the calm, centered kind of different you'd expect from meditation. It was electric, distracted. She kept checking her phone with this private half-smile, tilting the screen away when I glanced over. When I asked who she was texting, she said it was her friend Kayla from college. But I saw the contact name before she angled the phone away. It wasn't Kayla. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that proposal anxiety, was manufacturing suspicion out of nothing. I doubled down on denial because the alternative was something I wasn't prepared to look at. Day 4. She came back from the retreat later than usual, almost 2.5 hours instead of the scheduled 90 minutes. She smelled like cedar and Palo Santo, which was normal for the retreat. But she also had a brightness in her eyes that she hadn't had when she left, and it had nothing to do with breathwork. That evening, I suggested the cliffside restaurant, the one I'd been saving for the proposal. I'd moved the reservation up a day because something in me felt like waiting was dangerous, like I needed to lock this moment in before whatever was shifting in the air shifted too far. We dressed up. She wore a navy wrap dress that I'd told her once was my favorite thing she owned. I wore the blazer with the ring in the pocket. We drove to the restaurant in near silence, which I filled with music and told myself was comfortable quiet. We sat down, ordered a bottle of Napa Cab that cost more than a car payment. The sky over the mesa was turning that particular shade of burnt orange and deep violet that makes you feel like you're inside a painting. I reached into my jacket and touched the velvet box. And before I could do anything else, Brittany set down her wine glass with a sharp, deliberate clink, folded her hands on the table, and looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. "Daniel, I need to tell you something, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it because I don't think that would be fair to either of us." The ring felt like it weighed 50 pounds. "I've met someone at the retreat. His name is Colt. He's one of the lead facilitators." She paused, like she was waiting for me to react. I didn't. I couldn't. "I know this is going to sound like a cliché, and I know it's going to hurt you. But what I feel when I'm around him is something I haven't felt in a long time. Maybe ever." The restaurant hummed around us. A couple at the next table was laughing. A waiter refilled someone's water glass. The sunset was obscene in its beauty, absolutely indifferent to what was happening at our corner table. "What are you saying?" I asked. My voice came out steady. "I don't know how. I'm saying I can't keep pretending that what we have is enough. With you, Daniel, I'm comfortable. I'm secure. I care about you. But I'm not alive. And with Colt," she stopped, shook her head slightly, as if shaking off the inadequacy of language. "He sees something in me that I forgot was there." I stared at her. "You've known this man for 3 days. I know how it sounds. You've known me for 7 years. I know." And she said it like it was an argument in her favor, like the length of our relationship was the very evidence of what was wrong with it. The ring was in my pocket. I thought about showing it to her. For one brief, dark moment I thought about putting it on the table between us, letting her see exactly what she was walking away from. But I didn't. That wasn't something I'd do. Instead, I said, "Where are you planning to go tonight?" She blinked. I don't think she expected the question to be that practical. "Colt is a house, hey? A rental. He invited me to." "Okay." I folded my napkin and set it on the table. "Then you should go." She reached for my hand. "Daniel, I don't want you to think." I moved my hand. Not aggressively, just clearly. "I don't need you to explain anything else. You've been clear." She left the restaurant before the entrees arrived. I watched her walk out, her navy dress disappearing through the door, and then I turned back to the dying light over the mesa and sat with it for a while. I ordered dinner. I ate every bite. I tipped 40% because none of this was a waiter's fault. I walked back to the resort alone, and the night air tasted like juniper and the specific kind of silence that only exists in the desert. I sat on the private patio outside our room and looked at the ring under the string lights. The sapphire caught the light and threw a tiny blue star across my palm. I sat there until almost 4 in the morning, and somewhere around 2 a.m., the grief gave way to something colder and more useful. Not anger. Anger would have been sloppy. Something more like clarity. Like the moment a complex structural problem suddenly resolves itself, and you can see exactly which load-bearing elements have been compromised. She had been in that room. She had her things in those drawers, her toiletry bag on the bathroom counter, her suitcase under the luggage rack. And I had a 6 a.m. flight to Denver that I hadn't booked yet. I booked it at 2:07 a.m. By 3 a.m., I had a list. It was organized and specific, and it had 17 items on it. Number 1. The condo was in my name. I had purchased it 4 years ago. Brittany had been listed on my emergency contact form, but had never been on the deed or the mortgage. Number 2. She had a key. Number 3. She would not have that key for long. I was at Denver International by 8:15 that morning. I was showered, pressed, operating on zero sleep and enough adrenaline to power a small city. By 9:30, I was in an Uber heading toward my neighborhood. By 10:45, I had a locksmith, a no-nonsense woman named Rosa who asked no questions, changing every lock in my condo. While Rosa worked, I called my attorney. Her name is Patricia, and she'd handled my real estate closing and a business dispute I'd had 2 years prior. She knew me and she knew how I operated. Patricia, I need about an hour of your time this week, and I need you to help me ensure that someone I've been in a relationship with has no legal entanglement with my property or my finances. Patricia was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Come in Thursday at 11. Bring any documents that show shared financial arrangements. There weren't many. That was one thing I'd always been careful about, not out of mistrust, just out of habit. Our finances were largely separate. She had her own accounts, her own lease on her car. We shared a Spotify account and a few streaming services. That was about to end. By noon, I was inside my condo entirely, and I had started packing. I did not throw her things. I want to be clear about that. Every item was handled with care. Her clothes were folded or hung properly in wardrobe boxes. Her books were grouped by size and wrapped. Her collection of succulent plants, 12 of them on the windowsill, were packed in a produce crate with paper packing around each pot so none of them would tip. Her grandmother's jewelry box was wrapped in 2 layers of bubble wrap and placed in its own box, labeled fragile, sentimental in red marker. 19 boxes. 7 hours. When I finished, I called her parents. Her mother, Diane, picked up on the second ring. She and I had always had a warm relationship. She called me Dan even though no one else did. And every Christmas she sent me homemade lemon bars because she knew they were my favorite. Diane, it's Daniel. I need to tell you something. I kept my voice measured and factual. I told her what had happened in Sedona without editorializing. When I finished, there was a long silence. Then, oh, Daniel. Oh, sweetheart. I'm so sorry. Her husband, Frank, got on the line. What do you need from us? Brittany's belongings. 19 boxes. They are ready for pickup, or I can arrange delivery to your house in Colorado Springs. I need them out of my space, and I thought you'd want them with you rather than in a storage unit. Frank said, bring them here. We'll come to you. They drove up the next day. Frank and I loaded the boxes into his truck in near silence. Diane hugged me before they left and held on for a beat longer than a normal hug. She didn't say anything because there was nothing adequate to say. I watched the truck turn out of my building's parking lot and felt something I didn't expect, the ground solid under my feet. Like the world had been slightly tilted for months and had only just corrected itself. Brittany came home to Denver 6 days later. The doorman at my building, a solid man named Marcus who I'd always tipped well at the holidays, called me at work. Mr. Harlow, there's a woman down here asking to come up. Says she's your girlfriend. The key she tried isn't working. Her name is Brittany. She's not my girlfriend anymore, and she's not authorized to enter the building or the unit. If she becomes disruptive, please call building security. Understood, sir. That evening, Marcus handed me an envelope. Her handwriting on the front. I put it directly in the recycling bin without opening it. My attorney sent the formal notice of separation of domicile and asset release that same week. Certified mail. Email. 1 copy to Brittany. 1 to her parents' address as a courtesy. Brittany tried calling me 17 times in 2 days using numbers I didn't recognize. Borrowed phones, probably. Every call went unanswered. My own attorney fielded her messages. The response was always the same. All communications go through counsel. 3 days after she returned, she apparently showed up at my building again and left a longer letter with Marcus 4 handwritten pages, which I also put in the recycling bin. Whatever she needed to say. I had heard the only thing that mattered in Sedona. She'd chosen someone she knew for 3 days over someone she'd built a life with for 7 years. That choice had consequences. The weeks after were quieter than I expected. I'd braced for some period of devastation, some phase of grief so total it would compromise my functioning. It didn't come, not in the way I expected. I went to work. I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Rhonda Castillo, who my attorney had actually recommended, which told me Patricia had dealt with a lot of post-breakup clients. Rhonda was direct and perceptive and didn't let me turn the sessions into a pity festival. Good. I didn't want pity. I wanted to understand how I hadn't seen this coming. The answer Rhonda helped me arrive at, slowly, was that I had seen it. I had felt the draft of something cold and wrong for longer than I'd admitted. I'd just chosen the comfort of ignoring it over the terror of examining it. 1 month after Sedona, I ran into Brittany at the coffee shop 2 blocks from my condo. Our coffee shop, the one we'd gone to every Sunday for years. She was with a woman I didn't recognize, both of them at a window table. She saw me through the glass first. I watched the hope ignite in her face and then the desperation right behind it, and then the beginning of something like panic when I didn't stop walking. I walked in, ordered my usual, large Americano, oat milk, 1 sugar. Took it to go. Walked out the front door without looking at her table again. I heard her say my name as the door closed behind me. I kept walking. 2 months after Sedona, I had dinner with a woman named Alicia who worked in civil engineering at a firm on the other side of the city. We'd met at an industry conference 3 years earlier and had stayed in loose professional contact. She asked me thoughtful questions about a bridge retrofit project I was managing. She had a laugh that sounded completely unguarded, like it surprised even her. When I drove home that night, I noticed the ring was no longer in the top drawer of my dresser, because I had returned it to the jeweler 2 weeks prior. He'd refunded me in full and said the piece was too beautiful to sit in a drawer. I agreed. Here's what I know now that I didn't know then. Brittany and Colt lasted approximately 6 weeks. I know this not because I tracked it, but because Diane, her own mother, called me to apologize on behalf of her family and mentioned it in passing, with a sadness in her voice that I understood completely. I didn't say anything satisfying in response. I didn't need to. The universe had already said it. What Brittany called being alive was a neurological static of a new infatuation. That sensation, that electric, nerve-ending awakening, is real, but it's not love. It's chemistry doing what chemistry does in the first 30 days of contact with someone new. She confused a firecracker for a foundation and blew up something 7 years in the making for a 6-week fuse. She told me in that restaurant that with me she only existed, that she only felt alive with him. What I've come to understand is that she was talking about herself, not about me. Something in her had gone quiet, and she looked outward for the source when the source was always internal. That's not something I could have fixed. That's not something that was ever mine to fix. The ring in my breast pocket that night was not a proposal. Looking back, it was the last gesture of someone who had already been proposed to and declined by the person he was with, just not in those words. Not yet. I kept the photo of her on the Cathedral Rock Trail for about a month. The one where she was laughing and the red rocks rose behind her like something ancient and unmovable. Then one evening I looked at it, felt nothing in particular, and deleted it. I felt nothing, which, if you've ever loved someone the way I loved her, you know is not nothing. That absence of pain, after everything, that is its own kind of arrival. What do you think? Have you ever had someone walk out on something real, chasing something they thought was more alive? Drop your story in the comments. Like this video if it hit home. And subscribe to Reddit Family Secrets, because we're just getting started.